How's it going, guys? Cody Bertrand here, and in today's episode I wanted to go through my tournament recap of the third and final Bassmaster Northern Open of the year up there at St. Lawrence River out of Clayton, New York, and it was quite the event. I'm going to go through everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, what I learned. I already kind of posted a practice video, so if you wanted to see my practice and what I kind of put together, go ahead and check out my last video to check that out. But in today's episode, this is the actual tournament, what happened. So starting off, man, day one, I was kind of all in on the lake because based off of my practice, the river was fishing kind of random for me. It was my first time really getting to learn that kind of river and current fishing, and I didn't really jive well with it that much. But in the lake, I kind of grown up fishing the southern end of Lake Michigan, and I've seen a lot of things on the lake that just made a lot more sense to me, what to look for and stuff, and what I was catching my fish on. So I opted to go to the lake. Day one was kind of bumpy. Took me a little bit to get to my starting area, but I was starting out. I practiced deep, and I found like two little areas that kind of were whatever. I mean, I caught two 4.5s, but like it was way out there, and I knew coming into the tournament, you know, more than likely it was going to blow at least one day of the tournament, blow really bad. So I wanted to try planning, staying kind of closer in the lake towards the mouth in case that did happen. So I ran out to the lake, and second to last day of practice, I was just noticing a lot of big ones shallow. Like I hadn't really gone shallow yet, and so once I started going shallow, and I would see little wolf packs of them and stuff. So I opted to just go all in on the shallow deal in the lake. I had 2 or 3 shallow areas in the river too. After I kind of figured out what was happening on the lake, I wanted to go try shallow in the river. So I found like 2 areas in the river as like a backup in case I needed to just hit the panic button and go in the river and try something else shallow there. But there was a big concentration of fish shallow. So I knew I was going to be able to fish how I wanted for them. I love to get up there, power fish, visually see them, and I just love to power fish for some big smallies. So I got out there, and day one, it was blowing. I started on one little flat that I had 3 like 4 to 5 pounders following my spinnerbait in practice, and the cast before I seen those, I caught like a 4.5. So I knew there was a pretty good little wad of fish there, and I started there. Nothing was really happening. Bounced out deep, drop shot it a tad bit just on some boulders adjacent to this shallow flat, and I knew coming into this tournament I was gonna have to run all new water, because what I found was mainly just one area, like one section, and I had some battery issues I had to get addressed on that Tuesday. So I wasn't really able to expand on a lot of what I found in practice during practice. So now in the tournament, I kind of had that the night before day one, I marked probably 10 to 12 areas. Just I like to mark them with a yellow exclamation, like a caution sign. Just that's my way of knowing like this is something I really want to go look at, and I'm just going to run it in the tournament. So after my first probably 3 spots that I fished in the morning, I was running all new, complete, just whatever, gut feeling, whatever I wanted to go run, looked right, and never made a cast on it in my life. So I went through my first 3 spots, had one little baby keeper, 12-incher, and that was it. And so then I just went fishing, rolled up to this one little area at like, I had one 12-incher at probably 11:30. And I roll up to this one stretch, and there's all these gorgeous boulders, and it was in like 6, 7 foot, and I just get up there, and I have a giant come up, swat at my spinnerbait, and then I noticed in practice when they'd either follow it or swat at it, I could pitch back in there with a Ned rig and sometimes get them to bite. I experimented also with different baits as far as maybe a drop shot or a Ned rig or just a wacky Senko. I did experiment with like a Nico rig. Like I tried different follow-up baits, but the Ned rig is just so deadly out there for smallmouth. So that's what I really stuck with. So I had a big one come up, swat at it, missed it. And then and it was real wavy. This was at like 11:30. The wind started to switch, and it was getting really rough. And I knew I probably only had another like hour until it wasn't like I had to go back to the river because I got an older boat and I just did not want to push it out there in the big waves. So I knew my window was not going to be big to catch these fish. So I start looking, the water's rough, and I can't really see where she went. I could see the boulder, and I just out of nowhere she appears like right next to the boulder, and I just drop the Ned rig right down to her, watch her go down and grab it, eat it, set the hook, catch her. It's a 4.25, and then very next cast, go and I hook a 5. I just see her I see this fish slither out of a boulder, man, and just annihilated it. It was a 5-pounder on the dot, and right when I rolled up to this spot, I was actually where I shut down at was just down from where I got these 2 big bites, and literally my second cast, I had like a 5 to 6 pounder follow my spinnerbait to the boat, and didn't get it. Tried dropping on her, nothing happened, but immediately it told me there's fish in the area. Let's expand on this, you know. So after I catch those 2, doubled up on that, and then probably 5 minutes later, I catch another 4.5, and things were kind of rolling, and then I expanded on that even more and went looking and eliminated some stuff. And I said before, and now I knew it was getting kind of rough, so I was like, okay, before I run in, I'm gonna go right back to that one flat where I had that wolf pack of big ones and see if I can't get one of them to bite. And so I roll up there about 12:30. It was a flurry. It was like a flurry of bites from like 11:30 to like 12:30ish, 1, somewhere in there. It was like an hour and a half bite window that this all went down. And I rolled back to this flat. It's like 5 foot. And another big key was long casts. I tried the hair jig thing. I tried all that, and I just wasn't getting any bites doing it. The only thing, me personally, that I could trigger bites shallow on as far as a moving bait was considered was a spinnerbait. And so I just huck this thing out there, and second cast, it buckles up, and I hook her, and it's a giant, you know, it's a 5 plus. Takes flight, my spinnerbait implodes in midair. Super unfortunate, just my wire on the spinnerbait just gave, and in midair as that fish was jumping, so I lost that fish. It was a really big one. It was one of those big jet black ones that have been living up there for a little while, just crawling around the boulders. Yeah, that was one of those. So, you know, it was one of those things where you just had to get past it, put it back of your mind, and keep fishing. So fished around a little bit more and just really couldn't get any of those other ones to bite. The other 3 of them were really spooky. I've never really done this in my life. That's why it was really cool to like kind of do it. I was chasing down a wolf pack of like 4 or 5 of them and like sticking with them, trying to get them to bite, because there was no other fish on this flat. Like I'd been all over, and this was where they were at, was right there. And it was really cool to see how these fish relocated on the flat each day, and it was the same group of fish. And I had one other spot that was like that, and you'd see them move each day and how they'd reposition and stuff. So that was really cool. So day 1, and then I run back in the river. I upgrade with like a 2-pounder, call out a little squeaker, 12-inch or whatever. End up with 17 pounds with 2 2-pounders. Like literally, if I had the 5 that I caught, and I did lose one other nice one on the Ned rig in the morning, I could have had a pretty decent bag, but 17 pounds, whatever. So day 2 comes around, and I start on that flat again where I lost the big one and had the other ones, and couldn't get nothing going with those. They just seemed to vacate that area. So then I left that, went to all new stuff, and instantly the first spot I go to, my co-angler hooks up with like a 3.5, 4-pounder, jumps off on he was throwing a chatterbait. Then I lose a 3.5 on the spinnerbait, and I'm throwing a trailer hook. And then what I was also starting to put together as the tournament went on was that if there is an isolated boulder,
there's a giant bass on every boulder. One big bass dominates one boulder. Why? Because the biggest bass in the lake own a boulder. That is their home. They live there. That is their house. See this big house? 6 pound smallie own house.
I mean, the really good ones were like the size of the front deck of my boat, but even them little smaller ones, like basketball size or bigger, I'd say, if you could throw your Ned rig at it, stay like 15, 20 yards off the boulder and make a decently long cast with the Ned rig to the boulder, one would like pick it up and start swimming off with it. Because some of these isolated boulders, there was, these big smallmouth, they'll just own one boulder and kind of stake their claim on it. So usually if you can get on these shallower flats and find these isolated boulders, toss a Ned rig at it or something and see what happens. And I did notice with the wind, when the wind would blow really good, they would actually like commit and bite to the spinnerbait. But if it was a little calmer, a little less, just a medium chop, they'll come up and follow the swim bait, or it's not swim bait, spinnerbait, peck at it, follow it, but they wouldn't really commit to it. I tried the chatterbait, didn't really have much success with it. I had a couple buddies that were throwing it, had some success on it. I just couldn't get nothing really going with that. My confidence was in the spinnerbait, and that's just what I went with. So I ended up losing that one, and then my co-angler ended up finally catching a 3.5, almost 4 pounder on the chatterbait. I tossed over to a boulder, catch me a 3.5. Then we meander around this area for a little bit. Then go to another little flat that I just marked. First throw with the spinnerbait, I hook a 1.5 plus. 4.5 to 5. It was a really big one. Jumps. My line breaks on the spinnerbait. Like super, just like, it was a fresh spool of line. Like, I don't understand it, but big one, great big one, comes up, jumps, line breaks on the spinnerbait. What are you gonna do? So that happened, and then my co-angler loses a 4. It was just one of those weird days. Like, I couldn't understand why. I tried other stuff too, like see if just the colors or whatever was happening. I tried slowing way down in these areas and really plucking them apart, messing around with retrieves, trying to see if I slowed my retrieve down, maybe they get it better. Just anything you could think of to try getting a better hook in these fish, figuring out how to get them to react a little bit better to it, and everything I tried just seemed to, everything was kind of working. Like every decision I made really worked. Like everywhere I went, I got bit. Like there wasn't a single spot we didn't go to and didn't get bit. It was just getting me in the boat was kind of the issue. So lose that big one, and then get over to another boulder, catch me another 3.5. So now I've got 2 3.5s. My co-angler's got 2. I think I only had 2 at this point. Yeah, I only had 2. He's got 2. Then we get over to another flat, like 4 foot, and there was a high spot. It was like the flat was like 4 foot, and then there was like a high spot that came up to like 3, and there was some grass around, but it was kind of a clean spot with like little rock on it, and then like just off of the main high spot there was bigger boulders. There was only like 3 of them because it wasn't that big of an area. It was probably a 30-yard little stretch, but there was like 3 mega boulders just lined up, and probably 30, 40 yards apart from each other. And I get up there, not on the boulders, just kind of fan casting around, working my way up to these big boulders with a spinnerbait. I caught one that was like 2 pounds. And then I get up to this boulder, throw the net. I didn't even throw the spinnerbait over the top of it first. I just wanted to go straight in there with the Ned rig. Throw in there, hook one, and comes up, and it can't even get its body out of the water. Can't even jump. It is a massive fish. Get it halfway to the boat. Take my time with it. This was easily the biggest smallmouth I've ever like seen in my life. Not even just like hooked, but like I have never seen a fish like a smallmouth. It looked like a freaking carp. Like this thing was massive. So I'm gonna be conservative, call it like 5.5, maybe 6, but I think it was over 6. And my line just, the hook just popped out, like literally right at the boat, man. Like 3/4 of the way to the boat, it just pops out. So that was a lot to get over. That kind of riled me for like 5-10 minutes just to kind of get over that. So I put a whole brand new leader on. Just sometimes in these tournaments, it's good to when something like that happens. I've learned to just hit the reset, do something that just hit the reset button, get your mind back in it, because I used to spin way out, freak out, and just ruin the rest of the day over it. If you just stop, and even if it's just picking up another rod for like 2 or 3 casts, just hit the reset button. So I sat down, retied a whole leader for my Ned rig, just put a new hook, new jig head, everything, like just redid the whole system. Fished around a little bit more, my co-angler caught a keeper, and that was that. So then I left that fish, and I said, man, I'm gonna give her like 30, 40 minutes to possibly maybe set back up on that boulder. If it was like a 3-pounder, I probably wouldn't have done this, but like this was a massive smallmouth. So I was like, maybe she'll go back to that one of these boulders, hopefully that one, and I can come back in like 30, 40 minutes and maybe catch her. So I go off, zigzag across this flat with a spinnerbait, whatever, yada yada, come back, she don't bite, whatever. So then I go right back. Now we're getting kind of low on time, because the first day I drew a really late boat draw. The second day I drew a really early boat draw. That's how these opens work, is however you are placed, it's all at random, your boat number, but everything flip-flops the second day. So if you're an early boat draw, then you're late the next day, so it's all vice versa. So I knew I was kind of crunched for time, so I had about an hour and a half left. I probably had about 2 hours left to fish. So I ran back to where I doubled up on those 2 big uns the first day and lost that one good one. I went over there, and one of the first boulders I came to, tossed the dang Ned rig at there, man, hook a 4. It was over 4. I mean, it was a good one. And I get it all the way to the boat, and I'm like walking down to get ready to go belly it, man, and my line just breaks, like just out of nowhere, man. Like I wasn't putting any heavy tension on it. I loosened my drag up and messing with the fish, just making, just getting her right to the boat, and dude, she took one last little half surge, and the line just snapped. And so, I lost 3 big ones throughout the course of the second day that really would have been really, really key fish for me just to survive and get a top 20 for sure, and get a good check out of this tournament. If I'd landed both days the bites, I wasn't getting many bites either. That's what kind of hurt me, was the guys fishing deep, they were on more numbers and they could weed through more fish. Whereas me, like, they could afford to maybe lose a 3-pounder. I can't afford to lose fish. Like I was literally only getting 7 to 10, not even, I was probably getting 7 bites a day, 7 to 8 bites a day. And you lose one of them fish that you can't really make up for it, especially if it's a 5 to 6 pounder. Each day I had 1 or 2 bites that were in that 5-pound class range, and you cannot lose those bites. So that's what kind of hurt me. And in this tournament, Canada was open. As we all know, Canada's been closed off for a majority of the year. So I knew right before this tournament with Canada opening, I knew, Canada would get a lot of attention. I knew there was just a big Toyota series right before we got there. So there was a lot of stuff that was public knowledge that everybody knew, like what was getting pounded, where people were fishing. So I tried to go against the grain, go shallow. Not a lot of people were fishing dirt shallow like what I was doing. And so I wanted to really see if I could find a couple of them, big wolf packs of smallmouth up there shallow where not a lot of people were throwing. And as far as my presentation too, I've never really seen many people throwing a big Chartreuse spinnerbait. And so that's what I was doing in practice in the tournament to locate and catch these fish. Some of them was a 1/2 ounce Nichols Chartreuse spinnerbait. And I'm still going to throw this thing for the rest of my life. Like what happened on the first day with the wire breaking, that was kind of just a freak thing. I've really never had one of these things break on me, like ever. So it was really a freak thing how it just broke like that. And the spot it broke at was really, really weird. So it's just one of those things. I always run a Gamakatsu trailer hook on there, put a little piece of plastic, cut the little piece of plastic. The Gamakatsu hooks will come with like a tube like that long of this plastic stuff. You just cut a little piece off to keep as a keeper on there for your trailer hook. And I always like it free swinging. I just like it better. I don't want it stiff back there because them smallmouth, they'll hit this thing from all different angles and you want that thing free swinging to get, you know, a better hook in their mouth for whatever direction they hit it. And for the Ned Rig, I was throwing a 1/4 ounce ball, Gamakatsu ball head number 2. And the reason for that was I was making very pinpoint casts, and I wasn't really like working an area, you know, I wasn't really fishing a lot with it. When I would pick it up, it was for like 2 or 3 casts, just fish around where I either seen one following the spinnerbait, or if there was a precise boulder that I needed to get a cast to. And with the wind and the waves and everything, I just wanted to get the cast there, get the bait down there and get it in front of them. Because these fish, there was not many boats around me. So these fish were not that pressured fish. Like if you got the Ned Rig in front of them, they went over and at least nipped at it, or like they didn't mess around with it. So I wanted a 1/4 ounce, a little heavier, to get it down there, get it in front of them and make my pinpoint cast. And then I was throwing just a Ned, Z-Man TRD, just Ned Rig, just typical green pumpkin, nothing special. Super, super simple. I tried keeping it really simple this week and just trying to catch a couple of them stupid smallmouth, man. I love them though. I ended up having 13 pounds the second day with 5 fish. I ended up scrambling together a couple of little 2-pounders or whatever in the river to fill out my limit and whatever. But man, you know, that's tournament fishing. And it was the risk I was willing to take. But what I took out of this was just I went into it, you know, kind of fishing the way I wanted. I kept all the usual deals honest, because if you do find something out deep or whatever, and there was a big school of them, you can get right in a hurry. You know, it can happen quick. And there was a hour flurry up there shallow too, where it happened really quick for me on the first day. So I just came into this with the mindset I wanted to catch them how I wanted to catch, or at least fish the way I wanted to fish, and we almost had ourselves a dang good derby, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Please subscribe, like the video, and if you have any questions, please feel free to comment, ask away. I'll have everything I used in the bio. And before we take off here, I'd greatly appreciate it if you guys go check out 44tackle.com. They're a tackle outlet out of Inverness, Florida. They have an amazing inventory of tackle. I know nowadays with everything how it is, it's just hard to get your hands on some tackle. Check them guys out. They have a great inventory. The customer service is second to none. Them guys are amazing. They will do everything in their power to make sure you have what you need in time for your next tournament or a fishing trip or whatever the case may be. Please check them guys out. I'd really appreciate it, guys. And if you use the code CBF22, that's going to get you 10% off of your first purchase online. And if you purchase anything $35 or more online, you're going to get free shipping. So it's a pretty good deal they got going on over there, guys. Check them out. We'd all really appreciate it. And I hope you guys enjoyed. And stay tuned for the next one. I appreciate you guys all following along.